It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome back to another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, it's hump day. It's Wednesday. How we doing?
I'm great. I'm actually quite good. I gotta tell you a story about my wife. My wife does not know or really care about football in the slightest. She's not a sports person in general. She'll go to a hockey game, not really a football person. A couple of years ago, she got into a fantasy football league with a bunch of her girlfriends who also, I would say most of them are more football people than she is, but just not that into it. And last night, I'm cooking dinner. And for work, my wife is a manager of a recruiting manager for a healthcare company, and she has a team of people that work for her. And I'm cooking dinner. I'm in the kitchen, and she's in the dining room. She goes, "Man, there's a lot of people getting fired from my team this week." And I'm like, "Oh man, what happened over there today? Like, how bad of a day at work was it? Like, what's going on?"
Yep.
And then. She immediately follows that with like, what is going on with this guy I signed from with this guy I signed from the Los Angeles Rams for my fantasy team? And I'm like, we got her, folks. We got her. Like, she's officially one of us now. Never in a million years did I think that would be the conversation we were having. So I just felt like I needed to share that to set the mood here. Some people are getting fired today, and
he's ready to give up. Brandon Ayuk got $30 million per season for this. He's ready to fire.
Very disappointed with their fantasy roster right now. As many of us are.
Our friend Eddie Provident, his wife is in one of our fantasy football leagues with us, and she drafted her team entirely based off the player or the team. In order to be eligible to be drafted by her, they had to somehow relate to a horror movie. So it is not a very good team, but
okay. I don't even know. My daughter generally does the NCAA bracket, just preferred mascots, and she likes dogs, and I believe Huskies are one of her favorites. So UConn being fairly good has actually worked. I think she's beaten me once or twice with that strategy. Like all kinds work. So
that's amazing. That's amazing. The first 3 minutes of the show have been amazing as well. Everybody's wondering what in the world's going on. This has not been a Steelers Afternoon Drive quite yet. So let's get into some Steelers stuff, Alan. Limited today was Isaac Seumalo. We talked about him yesterday. Could this potentially be a week where he returns? I would say, him getting even a limited practice in today, certainly trending in the right direction towards seeing him on Sunday. What do you think?
I feel pretty good about Isaac Seumalo playing this week. He's the kind of vet that I think can play without practicing a whole ton. He has looked pretty good. He's still been running. That's a good part about an upper body injury is that you keep your fitness up, right? You don't have to worry about getting out of shape. And had the pads on today in a padded Wednesday practice. So I'm thinking arrow way up for Isaac Samalo playing this week. And I tweeted the video of him at practice, and a lot of people were saying like, "Oh, don't rush him back." I'm like, I kind of disagree. Rush that man back. I mean, like I obviously don't do it like faster than is medically prudent, but that is a big part of their offensive line. That is an important part of their offensive line. And I think they're going to look a lot better with him in there. And I think this is a matchup where they can feel like they can eat, man. This Colts defense, not great against the run. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. I think that's going to be important. Like they need to control the line of scrimmage in this game. And if he's healthy, put him out there.
Yeah, that not good against the run, and I mean, I feel like I keep bringing this up, but lost to Forrest Buckner before that third game. Now, Chicago didn't have the most success, but that's not really Chicago's offensive line isn't very good. They were able to throw on them quite a bit against Indianapolis, so we'll see the plan of attack for the Steelers. I would assume that's going to be on the ground. But speaking of that, what about the running backs? Because they were obviously a talking point yesterday. We knew Jaylen Warren got an MRI on his knee. It doesn't sound. I mean, he's not getting surgery. It sounds like he's avoided that. Haven't put him on IR or anything like that. No practice today for him, but also no practice for Najee Harris. And they listed as just rest, but his arm was in a sling 48 hours ago. So what are we doing with the backs?
I don't know. I saw Najee today. No sling today.
Okay, that's good.
I think he's going to play. I don't know. It's clearly not 100%, but whatever they're going to go with, I guess. We'll go with rest today. Jaylen Warren, I don't know, man. The vibe I get is that he could probably play if he absolutely had to, but did practice today. I would lean towards probably not playing. Jonathan Ward was sprinkled in with the first team. I think that should tell you what the intentions are there.
Yeah, I was just say Jonathan Ward next man up. If they needed two backs, maybe Aaron Shampklin as well. Like if neither one of Najee and Jaylen Warren were going to go, I don't think that it's going to have to go down that path. But I just figured to throw that out there. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, I trust Jonathan Ward. Like you were just mentioning about not having to or rushing or not rushing Isaac Seumalo back with what you saw from Cordero Patterson. Obviously having Najee, assuming he's going to be able to go on Sunday. Like I don't know that you need Jaylen Warren for this matchup.
Yeah, I agree. I think you feel good about what Cordero Patterson brings to the table. I feel good about what Jonathan Ward brings to the table, honestly. I think he's a pretty capable backup. And so I don't think there's some huge drop off there that like you have to get him in there.
Yeah.
And it's different, man. It's a running back's knee. You got to take care of those. It didn't seem like he was like 100% from the hamstring either. Just feels like a guy who would be better off given a week 2 right now.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, Alan, I feel like we should have one of those like videos that I can play that's like one of those severe weather alerts to let people know that we're about to start talking about quarterbacks anytime that we do that on the podcast, because people
maybe just get your clip of Justin Fields sliding on the rain.
That actually be pretty sick.
He can just slide across the screen. Now it's quarterback time.
That's how you know that we're about to talk about quarterbacks. Anyways, you brought this up to me that you wanted to talk about this because somebody asked you, or actually a couple people bringing up like the draft pick compensation for Justin Fields. We know that it's different depending on the amount of playing time. Like there could be an escalator where it goes from a 6th to a 4th round pick if he plays 51% of the snaps. Could that impact the way that the Steelers approach the quarterback position in their decision making? And then also, like some people are talking about a Russell Wilson trade. So I figured we might as well just kind of tackle those two things in one conversation here.
Yeah. I mean, the Steelers aren't going to do anything about that, like because of that draft pick. Like that's just insane. That if you told Mike Tomlin right now that he could score whatever 300 points the rest of the season if he only played Justin Fields 49% of the time, but he could score or 50 if he played Justin Fields, for one more point, he would be like, all right, yeah, let's do it. Like there's the difference between next year's 4th round pick and next year's 6th round pick at this point in the game is nothing. You just go play the quarterback you think you need to play to win the game. None of the rest of that matters. They do not care. And it's completely irrelevant in the decision-making process. They're not going to do anything and not going to not do anything because of the difference between a 4th and a 6th round draft pick, which is very minimal to begin with.
Yeah, like imagine Justin, it continues on the trajectory that he's on, where like he looked really good week 3, continues to stack performances like that. Team's still playing really well. They're sitting there. He's about to hit his 50% threshold. And they're like, dang it. Looks like Justin might be the quarterback of the future. We're playing really well as a team, but we can't let him hit this. We don't want to give a 4th to Chicago instead of the 6th. Like that line of thinking just isn't there. Certainly not with the Steelers. I wouldn't think with anybody, but certainly not with the Steelers.
I mean, the difference, so 4th to a 6th is like trading a 5th round pick. Like that's basically what you're doing. So like the Steelers would have like traded 5th round pick for like a backup tackle that they never had any intention of playing. Or like you know, like that's
a Jesse Davis type trade.
Right. Well, isn't that what they got for Kendrick Green? Like, I mean, it's
6th, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like whatever. Like that's a throwaway draft pick, man. It's already spent. You deal with it however you got to deal with it come draft time. You play the quarterback, you need to win the game. That does not matter.
Certainly. I mean, I
guess like maybe there would be a situation where like, you get to a place where you're out of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You're like, then it's a little bit different. Then you're not taking anything away from the team. Or conversely, like let's say Justin Fields gets through this season as this, but he misses let's say he misses 6 games with a hamstring injury, and then the Steelers somehow just keep winning with Russell Wilson. I don't know, Fields, whatever. You get to a week 18 game that doesn't matter and you don't have to play Fields. Yeah, hold him out. Like, if it doesn't matter to the team, then sure. But if you're trying to win the game, you're just playing the quarterback that you think is going to win the game, and that's that.
It certainly isn't at the top of the priority list in all of this. I think it's probably the best, or even like it's very low in the totem pole. Like you're saying, there's very few circumstances where that would come into their mind where they'd be like, okay, yeah, why give up a draft pick 2 rounds earlier when it's senseless to do so, when we're already out of it or whatever. But yeah, that's certainly not a path that I see.
I mean, I guess like if you got to the end of the year and it was really close, you might like find some ways to try to cut a couple, like, oh, we're kneeling down at the end of the half, send Kyle Allen out there. Like, I don't know, like, okay, like maybe if it was really close at the end of the year, you would try to find a way to like see if you can shave a couple snaps. But right now, like, not even in anyone's mind.
Right. I guess the other part of that then is, should it be on anybody's mind if Justin continues to play well about a Russell Wilson trade? I had some people ask me about this. It was actually something that we tackled yesterday on the Around the 4-2 Steelers show, Tyler and I, because we had a question about it. People obviously throwing out the Miami situation like that. We kind of touched on specifically Miami yesterday. But like, to me, at least, the only way that I could see it happening is if Russell forces his way or wants out because he's not going to be the starting quarterback. He has a no trade clause, so the Steelers obviously couldn't just decide to do that on their own anyways. And the other part of it for me is like, how often have we seen teams need multiple quarterbacks? I think the Steelers are in a really good spot right now once Russell Wilson's healthy with the shape of the QB room, to be able to have a little bit of a luxury there once they have that full complement of players. So for me, I have no interest in trading Russell Wilson. Alan, what do you make of the situation?
I love this stat. I've probably said it on here before. Each of the last 3 times the Steelers went to the Super Bowl, they used 3 quarterbacks those 3 seasons. You are unlikely to go through the season not needing your backup. And especially when your quarterback plays with a fair amount of reckless abandon. Like, let's be honest, Justin Fields is not all about protecting his body when he's out there. Sure. This is not 34-year-old Big Ben who's throwing the ball in like 0.9 seconds and like, doing everything he can to not take a hit. Justin Fields is living his life back there. I think he's done a very nice job of cutting down his time to throw, but he's going to hang out in the pocket. He's going to run. He's going to take hits. You are going to need a backup quarterback at some point this season. You can almost guarantee it. Okay, now I don't think that Allen is an unplayable backup quarterback. If you think that you could get through the season with just those 2 guys, but the situation that a Russell Wilson trade could work is so very narrow. Like, it has to be. You cannot trade Russell Wilson to the Miami Dolphins if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. You just cannot. That is another AFC wildcard team. You can't help them like that. You can't bail them out. Not unless it is for just overwhelming compensation. I mean, it would have to be a colossal overpay for the Steelers to bail. Like, this, man, they are down. Do not pick them up. Like, that is a dangerous team. You keep that dog chained. Like, just there's no reason for the Steelers to bail the Miami Dolphins out. So what? So they can play them in the playoffs? Wouldn't that be fun? Right? Like, no chance.
Yeah, right.
I think there's a potential if it goes to the other side. Okay, if it's an NFC team. But that's like, again, like, where is the team going to be that is in a situation where they're good enough that they know they can make the playoffs without their starting quarterback, that they're willing to spend significant draft capital to get Russell Wilson? Like, I don't know. Like, okay, maybe like Jordan Love tries to come back and he makes it worse. Now he's going to miss like 8 weeks. I don't know. I mean, the Packers did just win with Malik Willis, but maybe that would be a situation where they could feel like they can make a move. Or, I don't know, the 49ers lose Brock Purdy. Like something like that. But it's just hard to imagine one of those scenarios being particularly likely. And then even if there's a place where the Steelers would trade him, it would have to be, again, really significant compensation. I think there's a pretty steep drop off from Russell Wilson to Kyle Allen. And I think there's an enormous drop off from Kyle Allen to the non-existent fourth quarterback that they don't even have. Okay. So you're shorting your position one. You're now going to be like claiming somebody on waivers or something as your third quarterback. And like, for what? Like what? I mean, it would have to be a big trade. Like, it's not just going to be, they're not going to trade him for like a 6th-round pick. Unless, like you're saying, Russ is going to make a problem of it. I don't think Russ is dumb, and I don't think that would be a smart move for him to make. I think he is much better off being in Pittsburgh, where he's learned the offense, where the offense was actually designed for him, where he's backing up a quarterback who is probably going to put himself in harm's way. And also, like, let's be honest, given his track record, probably doesn't have a super tight grip on the starting job, if he even has the starting job, as we talked about yesterday, in general, and has a great defense. Like, they don't need him. Like, if the Chiefs lose Pat Mahomes, it's not like the Steelers could trade Russell Wilson to the Chiefs and he'd just be like, yeah, I got this. I'm him. No problem. Like, no, that's not going to work. Like, Pittsburgh is a situation where if Russell Wilson had to play, it could work. And so I don't think he's dumb. I think demanding a trade would be dumb. I guess if he does that, the Steelers would probably trade him, but I'm pretty skeptical of that outcome.
The situation that people, I think, were bringing up to me was, we got to imagine that the Steelers are going to sniff around at least the wide receiver trade market as that time gets, rolling here. We've talked about like kind of monitoring, see what teams kind of fall out of it and see, if Denver continues to lose, if the Giants lose, or, one of those names like Cortland Sutton or Darius Slayton going to be available at the trade deadline. I know Devontae Adams was thrown out there.
Hopkins.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Actually, Hopkins was just brought up to me yesterday in the same thing about Russell Wilson potentially. But yeah, like, so I think a lot of people are like, okay, you trade Russell Wilson, maybe not 1-for-1 for a receiver, but with the draft compensation you get back, then you flip that for a receiver, and it's like you did a 1-for-1. And I think that that's probably why people are willing to part with Russ if he's not the starter, because you feel like you're taking that and getting what they feel like would be a starting wide receiver for the offense.
Just trade whatever you need to trade to get your wide receiver. You don't need to make your quarterback room worse to get a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like where would the trade be that they feel like they have to do that? They got all their draft picks plus some next year. Like, what are you gonna trade? A 2nd-round pick? Go ahead, trade it. They don't need that pick that bad. Like, it's fine. Good. If you trade a 2nd-round pick for a wide receiver, I fully support that. But like, I don't think you need to trade Russell Wilson to get that draft pick back. Just go make the wide receiver trade.
As somebody that actually has a grasp of the NFL salary cap, because it was thrown out there, would you trade? Well, I say, would you think that it'd be a smart move for the Steelers to trade a 2 and a 5 for Devontae Adams?
Feels like a lot. With his contract, you're absolutely cutting him after this season. Unless you can, if he would be willing to renegotiate his deal, if they'd let you talk to him and renegotiate his contract, because he has a big number, but it's not guaranteed. If he'd be willing to renegotiate his contract to something that seems like it's more in line with his ability right now, I think 2 and 5 is fine for that player for this season and 2 more seasons, but it can't be at that number. And so you'd have to talk to him about redoing the deal. I don't know if he would be willing to. If he would be, I would do that. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of ifs there. And the Raiders also need to get themselves out of it, which, like, I understand they had a bad game this week, but they also beat the Ravens, and they don't have that difficult of a schedule between now and the trade deadline. They play the Browns, the Broncos, the Steelers. The Steelers are probably, the Rams aren't exactly tearing it up. They got the Chiefs in there right before the deadline, but like, are they going to go 0-5 in that stretch?
Probably not.
Probably not, right? Like, and so I think, I don't know. There's just a lot that has to happen there. But I think it's, in theory, someone that you should keep on your radar. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's probably much more likely that he gets traded, that he will not renegotiate his contract, and that if he gets traded, it is for a fraction of that value, like a fourth. And then
Yeah.
the Steelers are just going to cut him after, or whoever trades for him is just going to cut him after this season.
Yeah. Okay, I wanted to ask you something about the quarterback room because I want to get your opinion on somebody else's opinion. Bill Belichick was on the Pat McAfee show, and he was talking about the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh. And somebody brought up Justin Fields, and Bill Belichick, in answering, actually went on to say, a lot of people were worried about the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh. It might be the best in the league. That was a pretty bold statement to make. Well, he said might be, but either way, to throw that out there in regards to Pittsburgh quarterback situation. Now, he's not talking about just Justin Fields. He also included the fact that you have a vet like Russell Wilson behind him, two guys that you feel pretty comfortable with. But man, I just thought that was a pretty, I don't know if bold's the right word, quite a statement to make about the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback situation.
I mean, if you're thinking about it theoretically and you're giving equal weight to 1, 2, 3, I think whichever of the Steelers' backup quarterbacks you're calling the backup or whatever, yeah, you know what I mean, is probably one of the best backups in football, right? I mean,
yeah.
Okay. Probably a number 20 overall type player. The starter is also a number 20 over. I think Kyle Allen's a pretty good number 3. I can see the logic there. But the best quarterback situation in the NFL is the team that has Patrick Mahomes. Nobody else. The guy that had Tom Brady his whole life should know this. It is at no point were we all just enthralled with who Brady's backup was. It doesn't matter that much. Sometimes it does matter, but man,
yeah,
it's
when Matt Castle had to play and they won 11 games.
Yeah. Yeah, right. But I don't know. I think
I wanted to hear your take because we talked about this before the year, to be honest, though. We said we have to figure out who the starting quarterback is. We got to figure out the quarterback situation. Felt like at least going into the year, you're looking at a bottom, 10 probably starting quarterback situation. But at the same time, probably one of the 5 best backup quarterback situations. The players are just that close together.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree with all that. I just don't think that makes it a good quarterback situation. I think it makes it a quarterback situation that's very likely to yield at least average results. And that's okay. It's better than most, but I would not call it great.
Yeah. Well, see, I think it's a good situation, but he said the best. And to your point, I agree. If you're asking me who the best Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, the people that have those guys, doesn't really matter who the backup is. Mitchell Trubisky's the backup in Buffalo. I don't care. They got Josh Allen, so it's the best quarterback situation. So that's my take on it, and it appears that you're in agreement there.
Yeah, I hate to agree with the GOAT there, but yeah, I disagree. I think that's
disagree with Hody.
Yeah, we're at odds. I'm sorry. Sorry, Bill.
All right, I want to ask you get to a couple questions here from the YouTube. Hayden Bishop, I think his goal is to be on every episode at this point, so he has a question for us.
Just bring him in as a co-host at some point.
Yeah, we got these new ways of putting us on screen. Maybe he could be a little circle underneath us or something and just chime in.
Ask a small little Hayden Bishop right there.
Yeah. He said, have our expectations / predictions for the rest of the season changed from where we were at in the preseason based off the team starting 3-0?
Mine have not, even though I did not expect them to be 3-0. I will leave it right where they are. I think, to me, the injuries kind of bring down the enthusiasm for 3-0 a little bit, looking at just the sheer number of guys that are hurt already is eye-opening. Also, I mean, let's be honest, it's 3-0, but it was 2 pretty wins against medium tier opponents at best. It's a little different if they were 3-0. I'm going to make a reference here that I predict I am going to make multiple times. Are you familiar with the phenomenon of the freeze at Atlanta Braves games? Do you know what this is? Okay. For those in the audience that don't know, the freeze is like a masked superhero looking guy who is apparently like an Olympic track star. I don't know. I'm not sure his identity has ever been revealed, but he runs really fast. And you race the freeze, and you start in center field and run to right field, and he starts in left field and runs all the way to right field. So you get this huge head start, and then you think you're going to win, and he just blows by you at 20 miles an hour, and you feel stupid and you lose. And there's a famous clip from a couple of years ago of a guy who was so confident he was winning that he's just showboating, and then the freeze passes him, and he tries to speed up, and he falls flat on his face. Do not be that guy this year, Steelers fans, because you know the end of the season is coming. It is back there. Just because you started first does not mean it's not back there. It's coming. I understand the AFC North does not look tough right now. Just the AFC North is never not tough. It'll get tough. Trust me. It'll get there. It is coming. It's going to happen. It's great that they're stacking these wins now, but it is important to keep, like, I think there's a good chance this team starts like 6 or 7-1. Like, this is just the way they're playing right now in the schedule. And I think people are going to have like Super Bowl logos in their eyes. And I'm just saying the freeze is back there. Just don't showboat halfway.
Okay. But if they start 6 or 7-1 and the same question gets asked, it would change the way that I feel they're going to finish out the regular season for me, prediction wise. Like, I don't do game by game predictions, and total I said I think they're going to be 10-7, but I would have thought right now that they'd probably be 2-1 if you were to ask me. And if they get to that point in the season, like say they get to the bye and they only have 1 or 2 losses, like I don't think they're going to lose 6 in the last and post bye. And here's the other part of it. Even though that I would have thought where the Steelers are right now would be 2-1 and they're 3-0, but again, you know, I think that it's still clear that they aren't, at least to me right now, they don't look like a team that's capable of competing for a Super Bowl. I think they're a good team. I also think that there is more flaws within the other teams in the division than I came into the season thinking about.
I agree with that.
Baltimore's offensive line, I'm not seeing it. And also very concerning the way that they've played defense in the second half of every game that they've played this season. Cincinnati can't stop anybody.
It's just incredible.
So
we kind of saw through the Browns a little bit. I am very surprised by the Bengals.
Sure.
And I thought the Ravens would start slow because of that offensive line. I think they'll be okay eventually. But I had the team going 6-3 in the first 9 weeks.
Okay.
And finishing 9-8. Including losing 3 of their last 4.
I mean, yeah, like I feel like they're going to have that type of stretch somewhere. We saw last year, right? You know, the back-to-back losses to Arizona, New England, Indy. Maybe that is in that last stretch there. But I just still feel like, okay, you have 6-3, so I guess it was a little off from, because if they're 7-2 going into the bye, I mean, that to me, I would.
Yeah, I had preseason. I had this week as a loss, and I'm gonna give a spoiler alert here. It is only Wednesday. I cannot see me between now and Friday predicting the Steelers to lose this week. So we're gonna pick a 4-0 start this Friday.
Yeah.
At least I.
Okay.
And I had them at 2-2,
yeah.
And so that's ahead of the game. I think they're ahead. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure I'm buying it sticking yet. I need to see more.
Yeah. And of course, like, I mean, this caveat shouldn't have to be thrown out there because anytime you have a discussion regarding sports where injuries can take place, you can't really predict them. You just have to kind of like assume health. But like assuming health here, I think that the Steelers are a little bit ahead of where I had them. And also the rest of the division's a little bit behind.
Yeah. I think, and the one thing about the health is talk about the quarterback situation. The big bad injury, like, won't happen. I mean, assuming that Fields would get hurt after Wilson gets healthy, they could deal with a quarterback injury. They can't deal with a George Pickens injury. That's the one that's terrifying for the Steelers. TJ's bad. George Pickens is awful. Everybody up, Minka's pretty bad. Everybody other than those 3, I think they can deal with.
Yeah, I agree. I would be curious though, like KZ definitely played better without Minka last year for some reason when he was playing in Minka's spot than he did next to Minka. I wonder I don't want this to happen, so like I got a wood desk here, I'm knocking on it, but I would be curious if they could survive with the KZ to Sean Elliott duo on the back end.
I think they could. I think KZ's a little bit underrated here.
And then the last thing that I wanted to get to, and this is from Lumberzack, which I made the joke that this is me when I put on a flannel. This is what I call myself. But Lumberzack said,
I think you need to dress as Lumberzack tomorrow. Get the flannel on.
I don't know. Hey, listen, I honestly wish that I could throw on a flannel, but still here in Western PA, we're talking, 70s.
All right. Fair enough. First show we do in the 40s, Lumberzack is coming out.
Lumberzack will come out. Yeah. Deal.
All right.
Absolutely. Anyways, this Lumberzack wants to know about Keanu Benton year 2 leap. Have we seen it take place yet?
The year 2 leap is a very nice Mike Tomlin catchphrase. It's not like it happens like that. I think it is not just because there's a 2 next to his name on the roster that all of a sudden he's a significantly better player. I think that's to quote Mike Tomlin, I think that's a story that'll be written over the course of the season. We will look back on it and decide whether there was a year 2 leap or not. You're not going to see somebody come out here and just be like, oh my gosh, it's the second year, so he's a completely different player. I think you're going to see fewer mistakes. I think you're going to see a higher percentage of his sack opportunities converted. I think you're already seeing some more strength in the run game. Man, if you watch some of that Chargers run tape, I mean, Cam Hayward pops off the page, but 95 looks pretty darn good too. And the other thing is, like, I don't feel like they've needed him yet. Do you get that sense too? I almost kind of feel like Terrell Austin is like holding Keanu Benton in his back pocket in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we get Cam playing the way that he's been awesome. A healthy Larry Ogunjobi, I thought, has been a different player than what we've seen him look like. Mon Adams has been nice rotating in. Like, they have the depth there that they really haven't had to unleash the full Keanu Benton experience yet. But to your point, I was going to bring up the run stuff because I thought he's looked better. That is the one regard where I'd say, like, through 3 weeks here, I think that he's ahead of where he was in year 1, and you would expect him to. But he's also, like, unless you really see that leap happen, that jump in, like, sack production, I just feel like he's kind of the type of player that you have to appreciate more on tape than live watching anyway. So, like, that is where I feel like you would maybe see a bit of a difference between the way that some people view him as opposed to the people that are just like the live watcher of the game. Maybe you don't notice Keanu Benton that much. You go back and watch the game on the all 22 or whatever, and you're like, okay, yeah, this guy was popping a little bit for me.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that is really working sort of against noticing a lot of players on the Steelers defense, they have not been on the field very much. Like, it's
through 3 weeks, really, it's a full game's worth of snaps from last year to this year that they have.
I actually wrote in, like, one of my stories, like, the biggest hindrance to a Steelers player getting a sack against the Chargers in the second half was not the Chargers offensive line. It was another one of his teammates getting there first. That was actually the harder thing to overcome than the guy that was trying to block you. It was just that somebody else might do it faster than you. I think, so far at Keanu Benton, this is a kind of a wild stat. Keanu Benton played 57% of the Steelers snaps against the Chargers. He only had 2 games last year where he played that high of a percentage of the snaps. Okay. Yeah. But it was only 26 snaps. He had like 7 games where he played more than 26 snaps last year. So, like, he's playing a greater role in the defense, but he's still on the field less than he was last year.
Less is more. Less is more.
That's the whole defensive line is less is more. And I think that's an under-talked about point about this offense too, is that they are not necessarily tearing it up on the scoreboard, but they are holding the ball long enough to keep this defense fresh. And I think you can see the difference that is made.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. We appreciate the questions. Keep those coming for sure. We'll get to them when we can. So drop them in the comments for a future episode. Alan, tell the people they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH, PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. Like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications on YouTube. And you can find me in my kitchen trying not to get fired by my wife.
Oh, wait, question I wanted to ask. What was it that you were making for dinner? when this is all happening.
What was dinner last night? Now I'm gonna forget. It was one of those like weird, just threw it together on a weeknight. I made we got some corn and some kibasi from a place over in Ohio, and I made German potato salad, which I really enjoy making.
There we go. Vodka sauce tonight at my house. Very excited for that.
Steelers dinner drive coming up next.
Hey, when we push this thing back an hour, it really changed what the topics of the conversation we're going to be.
I am a little bit hungrier during the show. Generally, I will say that.
There we go. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Hit us in the comments with your thoughts on anything that we talked about, including what we're having for dinner on a nightly basis. Any questions for a future episode, all that good stuff. Leave us a 5-star review and subscribe if you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. You can find us there, just like you can find us on TikTok at Steelers Afternoon Drive. And then you can find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in, taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.